investment in the economy is much too low for a country at Nigeria's stage of development. And what doesn't go into investment goes into consumption. So essentially we're consuming too much and investing too little. As our research showed, investment in Nigeria amounts to about 10% of GDP. If you look at countries like Malaysia, that's about 20%, which is close to the world average. And if you look at a country like China, that's 40%. Now, this investment really goes into things like power, like roads, like schools, like ports, which is what is needed to get the economy moving and to create wealth for Nigerians.
Now, you also looked at this scenario here in Nigeria in the next 15 years. What would be the outcome if our GDP continues to grow by about 7% in the next 50 years?
Yes, well, broadly speaking, GDP growth over the last few years has been 7% per annum. Now, if you figure that the population itself is growing at something between 3 and 4%, that means that per capita, our GDP is growing at about 3%. Now, if you're growing at 3%, it takes you something like 24 years to double your income, which is not good. So we need to accelerate our growth. Now, if we're able to accelerate our growth to 10, 12, 13%, then as a country, our GDP can grow and become comparable to that of something like Indonesia in the next sort of 15 to 20 years, which is broadly in line with the 20-20-20 strategy, i.e. to be a top 20 economy by the year 2020, although I think we may have to push that back. If we keep at the same levels of growth, and if we assume that countries like South Africa also continue at their same levels of growth, then by 2025 the size of our economy will be roughly the same as the size of South Africa's economy, which sounds okay, but our population is 3 to 4 times larger, which means that on a per capita basis we'll only be 1/3 to 1/4 as rich as the average South African, which is an outcome that I don't think many people in Nigeria want to see.
According to your report, our economy is lagging behind a lot of the leading emerging economies. What needs to happen to make it right?
Well, I think that you know, the government actually has a very good power reform agenda, and what they've done is that they've actually looked at the whole value chain of power, because it's one thing to talk about megawatts, but you know, somebody's got to pay for those megawatts. Somebody's got to supply the gas to drive those megawatts. Somebody's got to come and invest, and if you invest, you want to make sure you've got paid. So without going into all the detail, the government has their policy and the plan they're working on, which the current Minister of Power developed when he was the special advisor, is a good plan. And you know, the question mark is really, or the thing they have to do is really to make sure that that is implemented. Now there's a privatization process ongoing. They're reviewing the tariffs. The gas tariffs were brought up to commercial levels. The electricity tariffs are being brought up to commercial levels. There's a World Bank program to buy power and guarantee that people get payments. If all these things are implemented, then we should see massive improvement in power. But the only thing is that it's going to take a while. It takes, you know, three years to build a power station. Now, there are power stations on the ground, but you know, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But we need to take these steps. These steps are being taken. They may be being taken more slowly than some of us would like, but you know, we're in a political environment. But overall, I'm actually fairly positive about power. I think people have to understand that changes are made. We're probably going to have to pay more for power, but you know, we may actually get power. But it's something that I'm actually reasonably positive about. I mean, you know, the situation has been such that we just can't continue the way we are, so I think things will definitely improve.
The Africa Finance Corporation is concerned with providing risk capital and project structuring expertise in infrastructural projects. There is no lack of these in Nigeria right now. How does your organization plan to participate in Nigeria's transformation agenda?
We've already started. I mean, we've made something like $250 million worth of investments in the country in various projects. We are also even starting at the back end in that we've been involved heavily in sort of, some of the power reform discussions and putting our point of view as to what would be bankable. We've also worked very closely with the central bank and the Bank of Industry in the Power and Aviation Intervention Fund, which has injected something around $1 billion into those sectors. And we continue to look at very interesting investments across the whole infrastructure sector. We're particularly excited about the prospect of the privatization of the Nigerian power sector, both generation and distribution. We think there are very big opportunities there. We've spoken to a number of players who are very keen to come into the market, and we're looking at how we can play a massive role there. We're also looking at things in the port sector, in transportation. We've also been talking about possibly something where, agribusiness meets infrastructure in terms of, storage and transportation logistics for agricultural products, which is a major problem in Nigeria today because a lot of these things, go bad because there's inadequate storage and processing.